We were wrong. Turns out we were not winning the war. We won a couple of skirmishes, but we are losing the war, ladies and gentlemen. And this is a statement from the United States Centers for Disease Control, and they were saying back in 2005, many bacteria are becoming resistant to commonly used antibiotics worldwide. We have misused the antibiotics, and as a result, they are becoming next to useless. Just a few quick examples. This is something called MRSA, which means it's methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Now, Staph aureus is a bug, lives on your skin, lives in your nose. When your defenses, your immune defenses are not at their best, this bacterium can really hit you hard. It can kill you. 30 years ago, not a problem. We had methicillin, we could cure every case. But now, what this graph is showing you is that in those countries marked red, over 50% of all cases of this particular bacterium are resistant. And they are becoming resistant to antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic. It's so serious now that some of my specialist colleagues, my medical microbiologist friends, when they get sick, if they require surgery, they say, don't take me to the hospital. I would rather be treated at home. Hospitals are just too dangerous. And when these bacteria become resistant, they travel around the world real fast. And this is a particular case. It was a consultant microbiologist who's a friend of mine. He picked up this particular resistant strain of pneumococcus, which is a bug that causes lung infections, in Spain. And within 12 months, that same resistant bacterium had spread all around the world. It had become a global problem. We are losing the war, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason is we're traveling too much. Air travel, large numbers of people jetting around from continent to continent, taking these dangerous, resistant strains of bacterium with them. And some of these bacterium, some of them, they might not cause symptoms originally. So I could have gotten on a plane last night in Johannesburg or Berlin. I could have picked up a lethal new strain of plague, bacterium or virus. They're not going to pick that up at the customs, at the airport, because I don't yet have the symptoms. But I might be coughing up that bacterium right now. I could be infecting this entire auditorium. You don't know. That's the worst case. I can assure you I'm healthy. I'm not bringing you the plague, not today anyway. But we are very, very vulnerable, and we are vulnerable in a way that we have never been before because of this kind of mass transit. And it's not just people. The mass transit of goods. Food, for example. This is a typical shopping basket. And when you actually analyze where these different foods come from, they're coming from all over the world, from parts of the world where sanitation is not necessarily as good as it is here, where antibiotics are misused. You are bringing all kinds of unwanted microbiological visitors into your home every day you go to the store. You can't close the borders to these kinds of problems. They affect all of us. Just to make life a little more interesting, I don't know if any of you know this, but 2 weeks ago, the Environmental Protection Agency issued a statement about a new and exciting group of infections which are called zoonotic diseases. Now, I'm sorry about the terminology. All that means is these are diseases that we acquire from animals. And malaria is one. But since 1960, we have seen 400 new diseases entering human clinical medicine. So, for example, HIV. That didn't exist before 1965. SARS, which you remember, it blew out, but we'd never seen SARS before. Bird flu and swine flu, new diseases. Hantavirus, West Nile virus, and in fact, since 1990, we have seen, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Since 1990, we have seen over 40 new diseases emerging. And the reason for this is increasing numbers of people. Increased urbanization. Large numbers of people moving into parts of the world where we haven't lived before and coming into contact with new animal species. Coupled with climate shift, coupled with increased human transit. These diseases are entering the human population in a way that we have not seen before. We have no defenses against them because our antibiotics are beginning to give up the ghost. This is a guy called George Post. He's a professor at the Unit of Biodesign at the University of Arizona, a very senior microbiologist. And this is a statement he issued in 2005. The age of infection control is coming to an end. By 2010, antibiotics will be effectively useless. In case you hadn't noticed, this is 2010. And this is more or less where we are. George was right. So how did we ever survive? How did the species survive? Well, if you have a good immune system, that will keep you safe most of the time. And this is a picture of Kalahari Bushmen. They're standing in here for early man. I don't know if you've noticed, but the gentleman with the bow and arrow on the right is actually an example of early Marlboro man because he's smoking what looks like a very primitive cigarette. But you can look in more detail at what it is that's keeping him healthy. And it's something that we now understand is the innate immune system. This is not the fancy part of the immune system that you can manipulate through vaccines. It's a very basic, fundamental part of the immune system, and it consists of external barriers, such as the skin, which is very well designed to keep infectious agents out. Internal barriers. If you've ever wondered why you have acid in your stomach, it's because a lot of the food that we used to eat was always contaminated with bacteria. When you eat food, it falls into the acid bath of your stomach, and that kills most microorganisms. That's why we're designed that way. And then you have a very interesting and very aggressive population of immune cells which roam around your body looking for anything that doesn't belong there, a bacterium or a virus, and they are designed to seek and kill, to hunt it down and to destroy it. And they look like this. This is a macrophage running around the body looking for bacteria and eating them as soon as it finds them, a neutrophil doing the same thing. Looks like Star Wars. These are very aggressive cells that are constantly working on your behalf to keep you healthy. It's extremely effective. Oh, sorry about this. It's extremely effective unless it's compromised. It's compromised by the things that I told you about, by stress, by malnutrition. But very recently, in the last decade or so, we have come to understand that the immune system is absolutely dependent. It's so used to the presence of yeasts in the environment, it has become dependent on them. It depends on the presence of beta-glucans in your diet from yeast to work properly. Now, we always used to eat a lot of these compounds because they were in bread and in beer, and they were present throughout the food chain. But the food